Good afternoon, and welcome once again to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you from the studios of the American Guns and Glory Network here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related political issues, and self-defense issues. Fired Up is on our website, firedupwithbobiRwin.com. We put up a new show every Thursday around 5 p.m. Pacific time. The new shows also appear on YouTube and numerous other medias. There's lots of things that have picked it up that they're free to use it. They can contact the studio and we'll set up for them to do that. The audio feed is rebroadcast on the Nevada Talk Network. Check out KELY1230.com for a station in your area. It's up now to 11 or 12 stations throughout the Nevada area. Questions or comments can be sent to me at bob@firedupmail.com or leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. Questions for our guests will be forwarded. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States. They're rarely covered by the mainstream media. So we always start out with a few of those for our listeners as an educational tool so you can place yourself in the position of the people involved and see what you did right, what you did wrong, how to stay alive and still have your house when the whole thing settles in 3 or 4 or 5 years. Fired Up is a nationwide show, so we always want to warn people individual incidents are generally settled under state law, and that law varies from place to place, and we're actually going to get into that a little bit on this particular show. The advice we're giving you here is to prevent losing a civil lawsuit or going to jail because you did or said something, usually after the event, that turned out to be wrong. My guest today is California and Nevada attorney Donald J. Green. Don, if you would introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background.
Thank you, Bob. For all you listeners who don't know me or haven't seen me at gun shows, my name is Don Green, and I'm a lawyer in California and Nevada now for 35 years. Emphasis of my practice, gun cases at virtually all levels, administrative procedures, representation before the FBI, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, criminal charges, administrative proceedings here in California involving firearms licenses, and representation in various aspects of litigation, and I'm very proud that we have been consulted and are being consulted on a number of pieces of litigation and legislation, both here in Nevada and California. Your listeners can get a hold of me at dongreenlaw.com. That's dongreenlaw.com, or they can call me on my personal cellular, my office cellular, at 702-409-8239. Thank you, Bob.
And that's 24/7, right?
24/7, yes.
And it really is. It's the only lawyer I've ever met who actually does that, and for real. It isn't some answering service, say he'll call you back in the morning. If you're involved in one of these, it's like, now I need help. What do I do? In today's show, I've got 3 similar cases with different details and varying results because of local laws. These are all about store owners being robbed or attempted robberies. With just tiny differences in the details and tiny differences in the states they took place in, and those tiny details and the jurisdictions make big changes. This is from WVEC TV 13 News Now, they call it, reports in Chesapeake, Virginia. A suspect who robbed a store at gunpoint Tuesday morning seemed to get a little more than he expected when a worker followed him out of the store and shot him. The Chesapeake Police Department spokesman, Officer Leo Kaczynski, said 4 people pulled up to a smoke shop in the 3100 block of Western Branch Boulevard in a red car shortly before 11 in the morning. The suspect got out of the car with his face covered. He had a gun. That suspect went into the store and grabbed some merchandise. The suspect then ran out of the business, got into a car, and got into his car. The worker with a gun followed him out of the store and took a shot at the car as he left. Police don't know if the bullet hit the car or anyone inside of it. A witness in the adjoining business, they're separated by only they can see each other from where they're working, a dividing wall. The worker said only one shot was fired. The guy walked in with a mask covering his face and his face down all the entire time, like he wasn't trying to hide what he was about to do. The witness said it's not the first time he's seen the suspect. The very same person was in the shop earlier that morning. This is like a regular customer. Clearly here we have one of the things we harp on all the time is we have a property crime with no apparent threat to life even voiced. The guy didn't say, I'm going to do that. He just grabbed stuff. The case would cause an arrest of the shooter in almost every jurisdiction in the United States. Fortunately, it appears he did not hit the suspect, so perhaps it could be argued in court. We'll ask a defense attorney shortly if it was actually a warning shot, or so there's no harm, no foul anyway, because even if he was aiming at the guy, he didn't hit anything. This appears to be a really tough case on the defense attorneys.
I agree, Bob. In just about every jurisdiction, in Nevada and California in particular, retrieving property or chasing somebody when you have a firearm and someone has taken property from you, it is very rare that that is going to be accepted as a justification for a shooting which could result in death. It's very rare. Now, what happens if they take the purse from my companion, my wife, at Walmart at 4 o'clock in the morning? If it's coupled with the threat, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to stab you, I have this gun, and there's that perception, and it is a reasonable perception, even though the gun might be an airsoft, it might be a BB gun. It's still good. You have to look at it from your perspective. But in broad daylight, and I notice that this was reported yesterday, and it's 11 a.m. in the morning, presumably daylight, so you can see things, and we don't see the correct me if I'm wrong, suspect does not have a weapon. Nope. Is that correct? So when the business owner or worker runs out and shoots however many shots, he is facing the potential of several felonies, including discharge of the firearm from an occupied structure in an area where people are likely to be harmed. Again, and without any justification, no great bodily injury, no death. So
Yeah.
This is time. This is, and even though the suspect had his face covered and face down through most of this incident before the shooting, it's still going to be tough to defend.
Yeah, they're gonna charge him with attempted murder and then ask him to plea bargain it to something he only gets 5 years for. I mean, this is a big, don't do this. Anyway, similar from WFLA TV8 on T8 on your side, they call themselves. This is in Lakeland, Florida, 7/28/18. Just happened. A Polk County man is facing charges after deputies say he shot a thief stealing beer from the convenience store he co-owns with his father at a Shell gas station on Combie Road North. Here, deputies say the 43-year-old suspect went to the store around 11:40 p.m., dark, grabbed 3 18-packs of natural ice beer worth $36, and walked out of the store without paying. The 22-year-old co-owner grabbed a 9mm handgun from the office and ran out to confront him. It's a convenience store. There's video surveillance all over, inside, outside, everywhere. The video shows the suspect tossing the stolen beer into the passenger seat of his car, getting in and shutting the door, presumably getting in the driver's seat. The young co-owner is then seen running up to the car and pointing a gun at the thief. He shot as the suspect was backing his car up to leave. The suspect drove away but crashed at the intersection of East Main Street and Fish Hatchery Road. He was transported to to Lakeland Regional Medical Health Center to be treated for a gunshot wound to his left arm and chest. He is currently in critical condition. The 22-year-old co-owner was arrested and charged with shooting into an occupied vehicle and attempted second-degree murder. The suspect had 12 prior felony convictions. Got that? 12. 9 prior misdemeanors. The charges included robbery, firing a missile into a dwelling, I presume a bullet, not an actual missile, battery, grand theft, and grand larceny. He's been sentenced to Florida State Prison 4 times and just released on June 12. This is now July 28th. Do the math. The same mistakes, basically, as in the previous case of stopping a property crime with a gun. But here we have a little more to work with to argue. The defense attorney has something to argue about. He's trying to make a citizen's arrest, and the guy attempted to back over him with the car. Apparently that was, though, after he fired the shots. We didn't get a good time thing here. This just happened. There's not a lot of detail. In this case, the thief had a long criminal history, and the young co-owner there has no prior criminal history at all. The defense here has a little bit to work with, but it's not real good because we've got again, clearly a property crime, no weapon shown, takes the beer. It's almost a saving grace that the guy tried to back over him.
Yes. Bob, this occurred in Florida, one of the most gun-friendly states in the United States.
Yep.
But yet, look who's arrested. Again, listeners and viewers must pay attention to this case as well, because the property, rarely is the theft of property going to justify a shooting which could result in great bodily injury or death. And in this case, there's great bodily injury. But notice that the original suspect has now become the victim. The original victim has now become the suspect.
Yes.
And when you're making this this split-second decision as to whether or not to fire off that round, you have to notice, is there a danger? No. Is there a threat? Possibly. And the stolen beer, let him have the beer. Now, his record could be relevant at some time in the future, but not immediately unless the victim knew about that weapon, about that record, and the then suspect's propensity for violence. The backing of the car, you say it might be good for the defense. I think it's showing that the danger is dissipating. If there was danger, it's dissipating because the original suspect is putting distance between himself and the shooter. Yeah. Therefore, there's a proportionate decrease in the threat of great bodily injury and the threat of death. So this is going to be tough to defend, and I have a feeling that this 22-year-old is going to be spending some serious time in prison in Florida.
Yeah, and the bad thing right off the bat is he gets arrested. We'll change locations, change the law, local law. WRAL TV5, which is NBC. Report. Oops, you know what I didn't do? I didn't run our commercials. We're going to take a break for 1 second. I get talking about these things and I forget about the capitalism part. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Hi, I'm Bob Irwin, and I get to do my own commercial. The short version is I've had 50 years experience in firearms, firearm repair, firearm design, 30,000 CCW holders I personally taught, 20,000 security officers, etc. Taught in 28 police academies, firearms and use force. I've also appeared more than 200 times in gun-related cases in federal, state, and local court. I wrote this book, The Reality of Armed Self-Defense, because it answers virtually all the questions that I get every time I talk to people, answers questions that come in the emails. It will tell you what you need to know to keep yourself out of prison if you get involved in a self-defense shooting case, keep from losing your house in a civil lawsuit. There are lots of things I've learned over these years and watched people make a lot of mistakes. This book will save you a lot. If you purchase one, read through it, I'm sure you will find it enlightening, and it'll save me a lot of time on these shows trying to explain to people what they did wrong and what they shouldn't have done and so forth and so on. So you can buy it by sending me the funds at the address below, bob@firedupmail.com, or leave a message on my phone number there, which is 702-257-1060. I will return your calls and tell you where to mail the money and so forth and so on. They're available on my website also, which is attached to this regular show. Cost is $15. I said add for postage if you live outside the immediate 50 states, and I will get it to you first class mail. Thank you for listening. This book will save you a lot of hassle. Thanks.
My name is Jerry Creed, and I'm a gun trust attorney. If you want to own an NFA firearm, a gun trust is a great way to own it because it allows multiple people to lawfully possess a firearm instead of just a single individual. I have reviewed lots of gun trusts, and I have found they often don't include the forms you need to bring people on as trustees and remove them as trustees. In addition, a gun trust will save you the cost of probate and avoid probate, and it can protect your executor and family members. You know, there isn't an element of intent in these laws that affect the NFA firearm possession. So it doesn't matter if your wife didn't intend to sell the gun at a garage sale or yard sale, or your daughter didn't intend to drive the car with the silencer in the trunk. A gun trust is a great way to protect your family members and friends and share in the fun and pleasure of owning NFA weapons. If you want a gun trust done right, remember to trust Jerry.
Okay, we are now back. This is another similar case. This is from WRAL TV5. It's an NBC affiliate in Durham, North Carolina, on the 18th of this month, a couple days ago. The clerk at the Guess Road Mini Mart at 2014 Guess Road in Durham has an amazing story to tell. The clerk said that at 9:30 p.m., a customer brought beer to the counter, then pulled a gun and declared his intention to rob the store. The clerk reacted by grabbing the robber's gun and wrestling it, basically pulling it away from the bad guy, and then he shot the robber with his own gun. He said, I took the gun from his hand and we fight before I take the gun. Then I took the gun from him and shot him 2 times. He added, it was scary. He wanted to shoot me. It was so scary. I left his name in here. I was typing this at 3 in the morning, noting that it was the first time he'd ever fired a gun was in this incident. When the suspect ran, the clerk called the police. The police found the 38-year-old suspect on Hillcrest Drive with a gunshot wound to his legs just before 10 p.m. This would be a half hour later. They linked him to the report of a shooting and a robbery at the nearby store. Another proximity, and we got a bleeding from a gunshot wound. So after he was treated at an area hospital, the suspect was charged with attempted robbery with a dangerous weapon, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. He was being held in the Durham County Jail on $300,000 bond. The clerk said the experience has him considering getting a gun of his own. Police say the store clerk would not be charged for his role in this incident. We'll let that slide for just the moment. Normally, it's the county prosecutor who decides that, but the police have announced that. Different self-defense laws in North Carolina. Another felon pointing a gun at an unarmed citizen, it could be argued in the previous cases that the clerk shot an unarmed man. He took the gun away and fired it, apparently in that same twinkling of a second. The law here allows self-defense. It's all in the timing. Wresting the gun from the clerk, fighting over it, he spins the gun around and fires 2 quick shots right then. If he waited a half a beat and fired as the guy's running out the door, probably not so clear. If he follows him out and shoots him 3 minutes later, it's probably an attempted murder or murder. If he shoots him a week later because he recognizes him, it's even worse. This is all in the timing of the grabbing the gun and spinning happening as one motion, but that's what the police believe happened. So, welcome to North Carolina. You're allowed to defend yourself.
Right. Bob, the absence of training probably saved this clerk's life. Most CCW attendees, most of your viewers who attend basic and advanced handgun and firearms courses are taught, don't try to take the weapon away from him if at all possible. So when this victim, when the store clerk took the firearm, it could have been a mistake, but it saved his life. But notice that even in the absence of training, this clerk gave short, crisp, clear responses to the police. I took the gun from his hand, period. We fought to take the gun, period. I then took the gun from him, period. I shot him 2 times, period. It was scary, period. He wanted to shoot me, period. It was so scary. He didn't say, well, in between, I had asked him, who did he think was going to be picked on American Idol? Okay? I'm not trying to be facetious, but what I'm trying to say is that look at his answers as we know the facts to be. And these facts are only, 24 hours old, as has been reported. So again, you have to look at it from the perception of the victim, your listeners, your viewers. How can I articulate that it's self-defense? He wanted to shoot me. I tried to take the gun away from him. I shot him 2 times. All of this, very short, very crisp, very precise answers to the police. And as you point out, the police were even saying, we're not going to charge this guy again. A decision ultimately for the county prosecutor.
This, as I said, we've seen this before, and this is from watching TV. And, the Bruce Lee type, Jet Li actually is the one, doing gun takeaways by spinning them around and firing. When the character he's playing is a bad guy, that's not if you take the gun away, boy, I can see this being argued. But in North Carolina, if the law allows that, as apparently it does, and once the police have said we're not going to charge him, I presume the state's attorney can override that, but would look, if we've got a totally innocent guy here who did this and it was all in the same motion, I can't see anybody running for elective office in North Carolina wanting to say, never mind, we're going to charge him with attempted murder. Politics do enter into this depending on the part of the country you're in. I was going to digress a little bit while we got about 2 or 3 minutes. I try to, and I don't have one in here, I found a couple of the same issues in a couple of jurisdictions in Texas. And Texas, if you're watching this from Texas, you may, under current case law, use force to recover stolen property, and you may pursue people who stole your property under state law. Now, that's being whittled at a little bit by some of their court decisions now, but when I go through a bunch of these cases, I got to tell everybody that's listening, if you are viewing this in Texas, the local police or the local DA may, when you question that, or local attorney may say, if the guy stole your beer and he's running away with it, you can use deadly force to stop him from fleeing with your property. It's getting a little dicier in Texas, but and then we end up, and I know you've seen it. I have a couple of minutes here to digress. Police in Texas still get in criminal trouble for shooting at fleeing felons, but it's because they are charged in federal court, and the federal law says you can't shoot at a fleeing felon, and they always charge the police under federal statutes. So we have this unique situation in that state at the moment where a civilian can shoot at this guy running off with, your stolen watch, but the police can't shoot at him because they're restricted because they get sued in federal court. It's exactly backwards of what you'd expect the law to be, but it gives me a chance to bring up, it really matters where you are and who you are, whether the case works for you or not. This is a good case, and the guy will very likely walk away, but again, it's all in the timing as to the immediacy of firing the shots as he's being able, they're more or less both in control of the gun when he fires the shots.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's an absolutely good shoot. Most anywhere, they're fighting over the gun and it goes off. He clearly has a hold of it, and the bad guy clearly doesn't have a hold of it. That's where the experts and the lawyers make all their money, is keeping people who tried to do it right out of prison, if that all makes sense to you. I'm going to get another story here I'm going to skip because I didn't like it anyway. Well, yeah, I read the thing over and over again. I'm not sure it's a good case to, this one is so complicated I didn't really want to do it, and that's why I put it on the end of the outline as the extra story. I've got to get some more details on it because I'm not really sure who the bad guy is on the police reports we've got so far. So we'll skip it until I can clearly differentiate that. I thank you all for watching. The website, our new website, is now up at firedupwithboberwin.com. It has our recent shows, and we're adding the old ones as time allows. Please patronize the people that have commercials on, and we'll be back next Thursday again on our website and hopefully on YouTube. YouTube's having a little bit of problem whether they want to keep
Right.
gun shows on. They're mostly stopping ones that show you how, they stop the ones that show you how to make an illegal gun. We don't do that. I don't think TV shows should do that because the good guys make them legally, So anyway, I thank you for doing that. And Don, I thank you for coming on again.
Of course, thank you again. It's an honor.
These get really complicated. If you're involved in something, get a hold of a criminal defense lawyer before you start making statements. If you learn nothing from watching this show for years, learn that one. Call Don Green at 3 in the morning.
We'll tell you.
He'll give you his cell phone.
Yeah, we'll tell you.
Thank you all for watching.
Okay.
We'll be back next week. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.